I'm sitting at my desk, reading through comments on my recent video about Aztlán, the mythical homeland of the people we call Aztecs. I'll get to the name Aztecs in a second. And the comments are coming in hot. It's Utah. Aztlán is obviously Utah. Bro, how do you not mention Utah? At first I'm like, really? But they kept coming in, dozens. It felt like hundreds. And Utah kept coming in again and again. So I went down the Utah is Aztlán rabbit hole. What I found blew me away, confused me, and some of it made me do like this. But there are researchers, some mainstream, some we might call fringe, who believe Aztlán wasn't just not a metaphor, but that it wasn't in Mexico, and that it might have been in the Red Rock Canyons of the desert Southwest and likely Utah. But could that be true? Or are we just retelling stories to fit what we want to believe? That's what the skeptics say. Scholars and scientists push back on that theory hard. They say the Utah theory is based on myth, coincidence, and wishful thinking. So in this episode, I'm laying out both sides of this story, with sources, with scholars, and I'll be dropping those sources in the comments and the description. I'll lay it out and you decide. Before we dive in, a quick clarification. The people we call Aztecs were actually the Mexica, a Nahuatl-speaking indigenous group who left their ancestral homeland in the 1100s, migrated into the Valley of Mexico in the 1200s, and founded Tenochtitlan in 1325. The term Aztec comes from Aztlán, their legendary northern homeland. Early Spanish chroniclers used Azteca to refer to migrating Nahuatl groups, but the Mexica never used the term to describe themselves. The name Aztec became more common as time went on, as European cartographers and historians started to repeat the label over and over and over again. So in this video, if I say Aztec, I'm mostly referring to the Mexica, the founders of one of the most powerful civilizations in the Americas. First, let's build a case for Utah. Back in the 1500s, Spanish friar Diego Duran wrote down stories he heard from the Mexica. He said they believed their ancestors came from a place called Aztlán, somewhere in the north. Later on, indigenous scribes were said to have created documents like the Codex Boturini and the Codex Albin, illustrated manuscripts that showed a migration south from a lake-filled homeland to what's now the Valley of Mexico and Mexico City. The drawings don't say exactly where Aztlán was, but there are modern researchers who suggest it might have been as far north as Utah. Let's look at the clues. Clue number 1, the Four Rivers. According to a 1990 article in the Deseret News, Mexican researchers Cecilio Orozco and Alfonso Rivas Salmon argued that the Mexica described 4 rivers flowing from Aztlán. They believe those could line up with the Green River, San Juan River, Upper Colorado River, and parts of the Lower Colorado River, all major waterways that pass through southeastern Utah. They also pointed to the region's iconic red rock formations, which they said matched Aztec descriptions of a land of red stones. Their theory draws on indigenous oral traditions that describe Aztlán as a watery homeland surrounded by striking natural features, ones they believe could match real geography. Clue number 2, the 7 Caves of Chicomoztoc. The Codex Xolotl and the writings of Fernando de Alba Ixtlilxochitl, a 17th century indigenous historian, describe a symbolic place called Chicomoztoc, the place of the 7 caves, as the starting point for the 7 Nahuatl tribes. In 1990, researchers Cecilio Orozco and Alfonso Rivas Salmon, who we just mentioned in clue number 1, claimed they found 7 real caves on Antelope Island in Utah's Great Salt Lake. They suggested this could be the actual location behind the myth. They said the cave group resembled old depictions of Chicomoztoc, 7 openings grouped together, like the ones shown in the ancient codices. Clue number 3, ancient rock art. In 1990, Mexican researcher Alfonso Rivas Salmon pointed to ancient rock art in a place called Sago Canyon, Utah, especially the mysterious Barrier Canyon-style figures. These ghost-like pictographs, some dating as far back as 2000 BCE, show tall, human-like shapes with elaborate headgear and circular designs. Rivas Salmon suggested that these images might represent early Mesoamerican deities, and that the visual similarities to Aztec iconography could be more than just coincidence. He believed they might connect to gods of war, fertility, or the cosmos, passed down in memory or symbol over time. Southern Utah is full of these kinds of panels, thousands of pictographs and petroglyphs across canyons and cliff faces. And for some, the resemblance to Aztec imagery is too much to ignore. Clue number 4, the Uto-Aztecan language. Lyle Campbell, a linguist from the University of Utah, and Jane Hill from the University of Arizona both studied the origins of the Uto-Aztecan language family, a group of indigenous languages that stretches from central Mexico all the way into the western United States. They've proposed that what came before the Uto-Aztecan language may have first emerged around 4,000 years ago, somewhere in northern Mexico or the American Southwest, which belongs to that same family. So while this doesn't prove the Mexica themselves came from Utah, it does show that some of their linguistic roots may trace back in that direction. And because languages often spread through trade, contact, or shared ancestry, it raises the possibility of deep ancient links between the U.S. Southwest and the people who would later become the Mexica. Anthropologists across North America generally agree that the first peoples to reach the Americas did so via the Bering land bridge during the last ice age. And yes, there are other theories about how humans made it to the Americas, but we'll stick with this one for now. That migration led to the spread of human population across the continent over thousands of years. So while the Mexica's deepest roots may lie far to the north, it doesn't necessarily put Aztlán in Utah, but is it really that far-fetched to think that the Mexica, centuries before Tenochtitlan, may have passed through Utah's canyon lands on their way south? Real quick, if this theory of Utah being the ancestral home of the Aztecs has you thinking, drop a comment to let me know what you think. Do you buy it? Or do you think the evidence is just not there yet? And if you know a scholar, a book, or a site that backs either side of the debate, share it here in the comments. This channel is all about that kind of conversation. And while you're here, hit like or subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, in this second part, I'll present the case against Utah. Mexican historian Miguel León Portilla and American historian Camilla Townsend both caution against taking stories like Aztlán too literally. In his book, The Broken Spears, León Portilla presents Nahua origin stories not as roadmaps, but as symbols of identity, meant to explain who people were and where they believed they came from. And in her book, Fifth Son, Townsend described these stories as being full of metaphor, political messages, and meaning, but not step-by-step directions on a map. Both scholars agree that these stories were passed down to build community and unite people, not to mark specific locations. Mexican historian Alfredo López Austin and American anthropologist Susan D. Gillespie both believe that Aztlán was located in northwestern Mexico, in places like Durango, Nayarit, and Sonora. Their conclusions come from studying codices like the Boturini and the Aubin, which shows a migration story that starts in a watery, cave-filled homeland and moves south toward the Valley of Mexico. But here's their key point. Those codices don't show anything that clearly points to a location in what is now the American Southwest. They say there are no landmarks or trails that cross the modern border. Both scholars suggest that Aztlán was a mythologized real place somewhere in Mexico, but not as far north as Utah. Now this next point is going to ruffle some feathers. According to American anthropologist Michael E. Smith of Arizona State University, there's no archaeological evidence linking the Mexica, or any other Proto-Nahua group for that matter, to Utah. He points out that there are no temples, no Mexica-style ceramics, no obsidian blades, no chinampas, those raised field farming systems they were well known for, and no known settlements in Utah that match Mexica material culture. These types of artifacts, he says, are abundant throughout central Mexico, especially in and around the Valley of Mexico where Tenochtitlan once stood. American linguist David Shaw, writing in the journal Anthropological Linguistics, explains that the Uto-Aztecan language family began splitting off into branches over 4,000 years ago, long before the Mexica came onto the scene. And just because a language family stretches across a large area, that it doesn't mean that the people who speak those languages all migrated in a straight line. He says that languages can spread in all kinds of ways, through trade, cultural contact, marriage, or gradual changes over time. And he says that makes it tricky to draw a direct path from Utah to central Mexico through language alone. American rock art scholar David S. Whitley argues that when people see similarities between Utah's rock art and Aztec imagery, it's usually pareidolia, our brains turning shapes into something recognizable, kind of like making figures from clouds in the sky. He says the art in Utah was created by much older groups, like the Fremont, the ancestral Puebloans, and Barrier Canyon-style artists. He says these cultures developed their own styles that were completely separate from Mesoamerica. He argues that many of these images were created over 1,000 years before the Mexica even existed, and they reflect local beliefs, not Mexica ones. Could developments in technology help the search? New tools could change how we find clues and also how to interpret the ones that we have. LiDAR, for example, laser mapping, can spot hidden structures or even old roadways under trees or eroded ground. Ancient DNA analysis can show long-term links between populations in different regions, and the science behind it is getting better and better and more precise all the time. Computational linguistics uses software to map how languages changed and where they might have spread, and obsidian sourcing tells us where stone tools came from, which can reveal trade or travel routes. The mystery might not lie in what we can dig up, but in what we can detect, model, and decode. The Mexica did say they came from the north, and that detail appears consistently across multiple codices and early colonial texts. Utah's geography, with its rivers, caves, and vivid red rock landscapes, does align with certain visual and symbolic elements of the Aztlán story. And Uto-Aztecan languages, including Nahuatl, do stretch into the southwest, suggesting ancient links across this region. But the skeptics say there's no archaeological trail, no artifacts, no structures, no physical evidence that ties the Mexica or their ancestors specifically to Utah. That mythology doesn't equal GPS. Aztlán was likely more metaphor than map, a memory encoded in story, not cartography. And also, the majority of scholars place Aztlán within northern Mexico, where the trail of codices and oral traditions seems to stop. So maybe Aztlán wasn't meant to be found with a shovel. Maybe it was a way for people who were migrating to say, we come from a sacred place, even though we don't know where that place is now. Or maybe the mystery persists because the tools we've used to search just haven't been the right ones. Yet. So what do you think? Could Utah really be the legendary home of the Mexica? Or is this just one more legend that's shifted over time? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've got sources, bring them. Historical, archaeological, linguistic, share them with all of us. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to keep learning. And if you haven't seen the original Aztlán video where all these comments came from, it breaks down the original migration story, the codices that told it, and how it's been interpreted through myth, memory, and politics. You'll find an image linked to that video on the bottom left-hand side of the screen as we get to the end of the video, so you can go ahead and check it out. I'll also have a link in the description below. And if you want more of the myths, legends, history, and mysteries of Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean, there's a purple subscribe button somewhere down in this general direction over here, and I think you know what to do. And if you really want to support the channel, stop by our store. You've got it right below the video, and we've got some great designs for t-shirts, hats, bags, and something to drink your morning cafecito out of that come right out of the stories that we tell here. Well, friends, that's all for now. Thanks so much for coming. My name's Andrew, and until next time, adios.